I don't want to talk about Bobby Knuckles' fight until we get to that spot. Let's start with his look on. So we'll wait on that because we know that that's a big fight of the night, and I know you're on it. What do you think of his look with Luke Juno?
So the Luke Jumo spot is interesting to me, Jimmy, because I actually didn't have a play on this fight until about 20 minutes ago. Luke Jumo has looked pretty solid, well-rounded, but he's not. I struggle to find whether or not he's UFC caliber. He's on the lower end of the tier list, in my opinion. Diego Lima on the other side of this thing is going to have a massive size advantage. He's going to be the bigger fighter. He's going to have the reach advantage, and he is a fluid technical striker. If you're going to stand and bang with this guy, you're probably in trouble. His whole weakness is the ground game. The reason he has struggled in the UFC is because you can't be pure one of anything. You've got to be able to mix it up, and he had no ground game. He's shown leaps and bounds of improvements in his last couple of fights, and his fight with Court McGee, he squeaked by because he was making Court McGee stand with him, and Court is a well-known grappler. Unless Luke Jumo comes out here and pulls some wrestling out of his back pocket that I don't know that he has, I am all over Diego Lima here. The money has been pouring in on Luke Jumo. Diego Lima opened a minus 230 favorite, and he's down to minus 135. And that's where this guy got him.
Well, going heads up against our Fat Fist. I love it. Fat Fist says head to head as usual. Let's go. All right, let's talk action on our very own Anna Merrick's card. Let's get after it right now. First look on this card is a big matchup. Bruno Silva versus Khalid Taha. Taha opening up at minus 240 at Pinnacle, now minus 227. Anna Merrick, Silva, Taha.
Well, Jimmy, this is basically just a spot play here. My boy Bruno Silva is way too big of an underdog. The dude's a legit grappler. He's a big-time Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and he has moved out to train with the champion Henry Cejudo, who is an Olympic gold medalist turned mixed martial artist. That camp is one of the fastest rising camps in MMA. I'm completely sold on it. They are turning men into monsters. And if they can do that with this kid, he's going to show up and be something impressive. His opponent has that big KO power shot, and that's kind of his ticket to victory here. If he can't land that big KO shot, though, he has a history of being out-wrestled. So if Bruno Silva is able to combine the wrestling with his slick Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I think he comes out here and gets the upset. First dog of the night, plus 200, Bruno Silva, baby.
Ooh, we're getting rolling with a plus 200 dog from our guy Anna Merrick. Next on the list, Ji Yeon Kim versus Nadia Kassem. Kassem opening as a plus 140 dog, now a plus 148 dog. Money coming in on Kim. Do you agree with that market move? What's your play on this fight?
I do agree with the market move, Jimmy. If you guys want to give Nadia Kassem a search over on Instagram, she knows how to work that page, but that's about all she's got. She's a young, explosive girl, and she won a bunch of soccer mom fights and won her first 5 by KO TKO in like the first minute or something. Absolutely paper-thin level of competition. She gets to the UFC and got completely worked. Ji Yeon Kim is not a phenomenal fighter, but she is better and more well-rounded than Nadia Kassem is. The other thing is Nadia Kassem really doesn't like getting hit. You can see in her fights whenever she gets popped, she's got a very, very amateurish reaction to that. Now, she is young, so if she shows up here and proves me wrong with all these things, there's a chance she could improve, but I'm going to try and fade her one more time. The UFC is pushing this girl because she's young, she's high years old, he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, he's got heavy, heavy hands, and he has been this close to finishing basically every single opponent he's had in the UFC. In fact, he took on Jing Ling Liang, the Leech, and had him in a deep rear naked choke and suffered one of the most egregious fouls the UFC has ever seen when the Leech eye gouged him to get out of that choke. The referee didn't even step in to take any points or anything like that. It was a brutal spot. He should have finished it there. This kid can finish anybody. There have been a couple questions about his motivation in the past, but he is at home. He's going to be the flag holder. He's the Australian boy, and they're bringing this guy in to make him look good. He's been rocked in every single one of his fights. He was on skates in his last fight. That was a 3-round ass kicking, and he's got an extensive amateur career, which includes 2 big knockout KO losses. I'm all over Jake Matthews here, but I'm not laying that kind of wood, Jimmy. That's not my style. I've got him inside the distance at plus 177. We're looking for a finish.
I like it. Inside the distance with Jake Matthews getting the big plus 177. Next on the card, Johan De Castro versus Justin Tafa. Tafa opens up as a dog at plus 105. Now a favorite at minus 121. This is at Pinnacle. What's your look here between De Castro and Tafa?
Jimmy, I have got an approach to heavyweight fights, especially low-level heavyweight fights. You take the dog and you take the guy with the power edge. So I got Justin Tafa at minus 105. It's simply that. He comes out of the better camp. He trains with guys like Mark Hunt and one of the fighters that's later on down here on the card, Bam Bam Tuivasa. So he's got that same style. He's got really fast hands. He's got the death touch. And when you've got a guy that's that big and hits that hard, there's a pretty good chance he's going to land something, especially with both of these guys being the debut fighters, one of them being the one training out of his home country, his home gym. He's going to be far more comfortable there, and I think he gets the knockout.
Gets the knockout. We're on Tafa. Next up, we have Dan Hooker versus Al Iaquinta. Hooker opening up at minus 129, now minus 162. A lot of money coming in on Hooker. Do you agree with it? What's your move here?
I completely agree with this line move, Jimmy. Dan Hooker is an absolute monster. There are two fights that we need to look at to make sense of this one. So Dan Hooker fought Gilbert Torino Burns. Gilbert Burns is basically a better version of Al Iaquinta. He's a second-degree Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He's faster. He's more explosive. He's got better striking. Dan Hooker KO'd him in round 1. Now let's flip the script on this thing. Al Iaquinta is a good wrestler. He is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt as well, but not quite at the same level as a guy like Burns. He does carry heavy hands, but we saw the kind of beating that Dan Hooker can take against Edson Barboza. Al Iaquinta is just not capable of putting out that kind of damage that would cause Hooker to wilt. So Al Iaquinta just got done fighting Donald Cowboy Cerrone, a man with a large height and reach advantage on him. He couldn't get the wrestling going, and he was completely outclassed on the feet. Basically, when you look at these things, the stylistic matchup points everything in the direction of Hooker, and Hooker has finished every single one of his UFC victories. Every time he's won a fight, it's been by knockout or submission. The kid is deadly and dangerous everywhere. He's on the rise. I think Al Iaquinta's dipping down, and I've got another prop here for you. You can play him straight if you want to play it safe and count on Iaquinta surviving, but since Iaquinta's so hard to finish, we've got a big juicy line on Hooker inside the distance. Plus 260, and that's my look on it, because if Dan Hooker can finish guys like Gilbert Burns, who have never been knocked out in the UFC before, and it only takes him one round to get it done, I think he can do the same thing here.
Wow, I like it. Hooker inside the distance at plus 260. Next up is the big fight. We've already heard Fat Fist on Bobby Knuckles. Are you with Fat Fist on this, or will you be going head-to-head with him?
Jimmy, I love my guy Fat Fist. I can't believe we're going head-to-head on 2 straight fights this week. What is up with that? I am all over the last style bender, Israel Adesanya. So let me tweak that just a little bit here. This is one of those fights that you can argue pros and cons of these two fighters for probably about an hour and a half long on just this one fight. You could absolutely justify either side of this thing. Robert Whittaker is the champion, and he's gone through 2 absolute wars with Yoel Romero. He has proven his place at the top of the division. On the flip side of this, Israel Adesanya is an incredible striker with a massive kickboxing pedigree that is now 17-0 in MMA, and he's wrecked his way through the UFC on his way to the top. So this is a very intriguing matchup. In my opinion, Whittaker does not go to that wrestling that he possesses enough in the cage. He likes a war. He likes to get in there and strike. That's all he's ever done since he started fighting. So I don't know that he's necessarily going to pull that out in this fight. And even if he does, Israel Adesanya is no slouch on the mat. I don't think that Whittaker will be able to hold him down as long as he needs to for 5 rounds. And keep in mind, this is a 5-round fight. That's 25 full minutes of action. I think Izzy is the more technical striker. He's going to have the height and reach advantage, so I think he's going to be able to slip and avoid the power shots that Whittaker comes at him with. And I'm going to lean on the durability of Robert Whittaker. I do agree with Fat Fist. If Yoel Romero could not finish Whittaker, I don't think that Israel necessarily is going to be able to either. And that's why the best value on this fight is Israel Adesanya by decision at plus 325. And that's my look on the fight.
Wow, there's another big plus spot. We have been given 6 looks from our Anna Merrick, and one's a plus 200, one's a plus 177, one's a plus 260, one's a plus 325. That's how this guy does it. You've also added a city kickboxing parlay. Tell us about that.
Jimmy, I like to play on the swing set, baby. I don't mind those big swings. I didn't get here to this point by taking, little shots at close favorite lines, things like that. I swing with the big boys. I take those big dog lines for better or for worse, and I just got to pick my good spots. So what we're going to do here is City Kickboxing is the gym of the headliner and Dan Hooker. So Israel Adesanya and Dan Hooker both train out of City Kickboxing. The last time 3 of their fighters were all on the same card together, they swept the board. They went 3-0. This gym is on the rise. They've got some serious talent coming up. So we have got Brad Riddle, Dan Hooker, and Israel Adesanya all fighting on the same card together. They are all peaking. They are leading the charge for their country and their gym. I'm going to parlay those 3 guys together straight on the money line. That way, if something goes wrong with these prop bets, I'll still get a cash in because I do see all 3 of them winning. I got plus 444 on that parlay, Jimmy, and I think it's a winner.
There it is, a plus 444 parlay. Bruno Silva plus 200. Kim minus 170. Matthews inside the distance plus 177. Tafa minus 105. Hooker inside the distance at plus 260. Adesanya by decision plus 325. He added Diego Lima at minus 135 and a plus 444 kickboxing parlay. Riddle, Hooker, Adesanya. Beautiful stuff. Anna Merrick. Tell us a little bit where we can find you on Twitter. Tell us a little bit about this big contest we have going on at Sportsbook Review, and tell us about the Die Hard MMA podcast.
You can find me at Maximus in 3D on Twitter for all my bullshit. You can follow me at Die Hard MMA Pod if you're just interested in my betting content and mostly my MMA content over there. The Die Hard MMA Podcast is uploaded to YouTube. It's on iTunes, Stitcher, basically anywhere you want to find your shows there. I break down these fights top to bottom. I also do fighter interviews and all kinds of good stuff is coming down the line there. And I need you to sign up for the Lords of the Cage contest because I need some free money. None of y'all are going to beat me. And if I win this thing, I get all those prizes. So come on in. Water's fine.
Water is fine. I'm going to put that link up one last time for everybody because it's not on our contest page. It's like the Beat the Bag contest, same deal. So here is the link, and there it is. Join us for the Lords of the Cage competition. And America, what a treat it is to roll with you. I'm going to start drinking and celebrating my birth, man. 40 years young, I'm going to start drinking. I wish I could be doing it with you. You're a great guy and a great friend. And America, thank you so much for joining us.
Jimmy, I wish I was there with you to party for your birthday too, my man. I will do a shot of Fireball tonight in your honor. And don't forget, I know I'm the MMA guy, but I'm kind of killing it in the Pick 6 contest. I'm right smack even right now, but I've got those Vikings at minus 5.5 as my 2 times banger on Sunday this week. So I'm expecting more shots of Fireball. You go have fun tonight, man.
Thank you. Drinking hands always gets me in the chat, man. Thank you guys so much. Great job, Anna Merrick. Thank you to all my guests on the show. It's a packed show. Went from